Andrea, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I first met you, I think it was in 2012 at Summit.
Yeah.
And I remember you were playing with your Rhythm Sticks.
Yes.
And we started talking, and my intuition was just like, this woman is so powerful. Like I don't remember exactly what you were saying, but I could just feel that you're just such a powerful woman. So it's such an honor to have you here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be on. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you've started 14 businesses. That's incredible. And you don't have a college degree. How did you get started? Like, did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
So I did know that it would be hard for me to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. That was terrifying to me. So I started the Rhythm Styx, the company that you're talking about, which for anybody that doesn't know, they're juggling toys. You hold two long sticks, one in each hand, and you throw around a long decorated stick with them. I started that company when I was 17. So then when I was 18, when I would have been going to college, I wanted to go to UC Santa Cruz and be a women's studies major. Would you like fries with that? Like, what am I going to do with that degree? But when I was 18 with that company, Rhythm Styx, I ended up making $75,000 that year. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to college to get a job to make money, but I already know how to make money. So I think that I will just do this because I could see where I could expand that business. Then after a couple of years of owning that company, I met someone that was making $1 million a year selling t-shirts. And I was like, that is all the money in the world. I am going to go start a clothing company. And that's how I started my first clothing line, anti-establishment clothing. That was a few years later. So I think I was 21 when I started that. And I made my first million at 23 with
Wow.
which was like
Wow.
very naughty, offensive t-shirts.
So did that person become your mentor?
At the time, yes. At the time,
Okay.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And was there any competition?
Well, no, and that's the thing about, because we even teach in my new company, we teach people how to start t-shirt companies. Everybody, like every guy that you know, and most women too, you have like 50 t-shirts in your closet, and especially men. And if they see another one they like, they're going to buy it. So I call it a bottomless market because everyone has a gazillion t-shirts, and they wear out and you want to get new ones and etc. So no.
And what do you feel like that mentor really guided you to help you go from 75,000 to $1 million? I mean, that's a huge jump. What changed in you?
It is. Well, it was actually just the type of company because so with Rhythm Styx, I was physically manufacturing a product. And so I did have employees because of course we got our sales higher than that. That was just the first year. So I had employees that were helping me make them. But when I was 18, so I don't want to give away my age too much, but there was no Alibaba and there was no Google, and it wasn't easy to like go get things manufactured overseas. So the difference was starting a clothing line, I could buy it's called prefab. I could buy already made t-shirts and just send them to a screen printer and get them printed on. So it was an unlimited amount that I could create versus like, how many of these sticks can we really make in a day?
What do you think shifted in your mindset?
I knew that I wanted to be rich. I really did. That was my sole focus. I'm like, I just want to be rich because then I can travel, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to think about anything ever again if I have a lot of money. So that was my huge motivation. And there's no noble thing, but like, I didn't know how I was going to make my way in life. And there was a point in time where right about 21, where all my friends were graduating college. And I still was making, I think we did like maybe, I don't know, 200 grand in sales and Rhythm Styx, which is great, but it's not a ton of profit. And I was like, if I just keep doing this forever, it's going to be like $50,000 a year. I'm sure I can scale it from here. But like, I just want to have so much money that I don't feel like I made a mistake by not going to college.
So did you ever feel like you made a mistake by not going to college? Because I think so many people fall into this trap of feeling like they go to college because their parents want them to, or because they feel like they need a degree to, get what they want, so to speak. Do you ever feel like, did you ever have that moment when your friends were graduating?
Yes, when I was younger, I had that. And also then there was a period of time in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, where I didn't understand that the actual point of going, because I was going to go to UC Santa Cruz, which is a really good school. The point of going to a good school is the alumni network that you catch hold of. So if I had it to do over again, would I have gone to college? No. If I had it to do over again, I would have invested in Google. But there is a lot of value in the network of going to college, but unless you're getting a hyper specific education that is monetizable afterwards, because I have people that work for me for, $20 an hour that have MBAs. So
right. I mean, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that you had that level of, I want to say, confidence at such a young age, that to grapple with some uncertainty, to pave your own path, to, not kind of buy into some of society's rules. Did your parents put pressure on you to go to college?
yes, they both of them were the first person in their entire family to go to college. And they both went back to school after I was already born. And my dad got an MBA. My mom was the only woman in her graduating class in 1979 with a master's degree in computer science. And so it wasn't even a conversation of whether you go to college, it was where are you going to go to college? But then they saw, I literally just sat down with them and I showed them my books. And I was like, look, I made 75 grand this year. I should make 150 next year. There's zero point for me to go to college to learn how to take a job. That entry-level position is $40,000 a year. And the only thing that I could have done with my personal degrees, which was going to be majors in women's study and a minor in South American language studies. And I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Like the only way to actually like make a good living from that would have been to go on and get a master's and a PhD and then probably become a professor, really. Or, I wanted to be like the CEO of Planned Parenthood. That was my ultimate, that's what I want to do with all of that. But that's, an awful lot of education.
So you built your case and you presented it to them, and you built your case as to why you don't have to go to college, and they supported you, it sounds like.
They did, and they actually gave me it wasn't very much, but they gave me my college, the savings that they had saved for me for college. They gave that to me right when I started my clothing line. So they gave that to me when I was about 21.
Okay.
Because they're like, well, you might want to go back. But they gave that to me to start my clothing company.
Yeah. Amazing. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, because so many people come out of college and they have all this debt and then they're getting an entry level job, so some of my passion is kind of dispelling this myth that you need to go to like conventional education to achieve what you want. And especially for entrepreneurs. I mean,
yeah. Yes, definitely. Because, I'm not going to name specific colleges, but I've taught all over the country. I'll name the great ones that I teach at. Entrepreneurship is Harvard and CU Boulder. Those are phenomenal. If you're going to a school like that for an MBA, go. But it's going to teach you really how to get a job in the corporate world. It's not going to teach you how to be an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs just go be entrepreneurs. Although CU has an amazing program for that. But then I've taught at a bunch of other colleges around the country, and these people are getting MBAs, but they are valueless and they are so expensive. And when I go in there and I teach the curriculum and I see what's being taught, I'm like, you cannot compete with a really lower level college MBA. People think they get an MBA and they're going to have $100,000 job, and that is absolutely not the case unless you're graduating from a top tier school. So if you're going to just a normal college, and you don't have a hyper specific monetizable thing that you're doing, I don't know how valuable it is. And you're going to be saddled with debt for the next 30 years. The way that the loans work is quite usurious.
So as you mentioned debt, I know that you had some moments of debt, one being where you lost $1.2 million in debt and you paid it all off and you came back stronger. Can you tell us that story?
Yes, I actually lost everything twice. I made maybe like $1.5 million, and then I lost everything, and then I made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I lost everything and was $1.2 million in debt. So it was all of my liquid assets plus the debt.
How old were you, Andrea?
At that time, I was in my early 30s.
Okay.
And I had a company and it was featured on Oprah, and we were told to expect 40,000 sales, which is normal, which is totally normal, but through a longer than we have series of events, we got 70, and we had the entire hour on Oprah. She personally endorsed our product. So we didn't even make one sale for every country that the show aired in. And it was devastating. I personally financed it. I didn't go through a VC, a venture capital firm. I financed it out of my own pocket to the tune of lots and lots and lots of money. Then the next week, because I owned the exclusive, I've had a bunch of companies. So I simultaneously owned a company where I had the exclusive sales rights on Minecraft, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Walking Dead, any big gaming or geek property you can think of. I owned the rights to sell their merchandise to chain stores. And we got $2 million worth of merchandise returned to us that same week.
Wow.
And then the next week, the IRS called me and told me that I owed them deep six figures. There had been a lot of mistakes on the previous year's taxes. I obviously switched firms, but I owed them a ton of money. And then the economy crashed. So it was like the perfect storm of just any bad word you can think of. It was devastating and terrible. And because the economy was collapsing, I couldn't see a way to quickly make up the loss. So it was really devastating.
So how did you get through that? I mean, that can affect you so much, besides financially, emotionally, spiritually. How did you feel like you really came back stronger?
Mm-hmm. It took a long time. So I don't want to make it sound like it was a snap thing. I beat myself up. I spoke to myself, and I think this is a uniquely female thing that we do. I talked to myself worse inside the privacy of my own mind than I would talk to my worst enemy, the most hated person on the planet. I was so hard on myself.
Like, what would you say to yourself, Andrea?
Can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Just like, how the fuck did you fuck up your whole entire life? I can't even believe what a fucking idiot you are. Just stuff like that. But 24 hours a day for a long time, for like 3 or 4 years. I just was devastatingly hard on myself. And all of the things that happened were like not predictable things. I wasn't making unwise business choices. It just, if you go on Oprah, you make a lot of money. That's just what happens. So it's not foolish actually to invest the money there, but I wasn't stepping back from it. I was so hard on myself, and it just felt like penance, like now I have to do all this stuff for all these years and pay this off, and it felt terrible. And I felt terrible most of the time, and exceedingly worried about money, like basically nonstop. It was
so just to kind of recap, so you went from this like, I'm going to be rich,
yes,
to making lots of money,
yes,
growing your companies, having multiple companies, and then this, like, it was pretty much like a complete fallout.
Yes, it was just a total tidal wave of every bad thing happening at the same time. So if any one of those things hadn't happened, I would have had enough coverage, because I really was hedging myself, but it was like all of it at once.
Yeah. So how did you come back? Like, you had such negative self-talk, and and thank you for sharing. And I asked you to share partially because I think so often we can say such mean things to ourselves. And, I know I've been victim to that as well. And I help clients with that. It's like, take off the boxing gloves. It's just, and it's painful, it's really painful, but it's hard when you're in it, right? It's like, you feel so real, and you feel kind of stuck. So how did you come back stronger? Like, what did you do that you feel like got you out of that mental negativity?
I really created an amazing community of friends. That is how I came out of it. And I recognize that I actually am really quite good at business, and I do know what I'm doing. And it wasn't like constant 24 hours a day, but it was a lot. It was most of the time. I just felt like I was failing at life. And it was just little by little. I just little by little talked myself back up. I had been meditating for the last 20 years, but I started really like daily meditating, doing yoga, hiking my dogs, getting focused, working on my companies, and just knowing that eventually it would turn around.
So I know you practice the law of attraction.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So where did that come into play? Did it come in at that time of your life?
Yes, it did. Yeah. Thank God. And so the funny thing is, at the time when everything, I like to call it de-manifested, I was in a really negative space prior to that happening because of a couple of business dealings, and like life was actually going really good for me, but I had other things going on. So it would be impossible to explain to anyone else, but I know how it happened, because I truly, truly believe that we vibrationally receive back what we're giving out. And I was putting out really, really negative energy towards money, which sounds crazy because I was paying myself like $750,000 a year. So how does somebody that makes that kind of money have a negative vibration around money? Let me tell you, it certainly is possible. Because I've met people, I met this waitress in a Waffle House in Tulsa, Oklahoma on a trip around the country, who had like the best money vibration that I have ever encountered. And I was like, you have 3 kids and work as a waitress at Waffle House. How are you so happy and secure with money? So it's such an intrinsically personal thing. But once I started to really make happiness my focus, because you'll notice what I was listing first in what I did to make the comeback was all the self-care. I made sure I meditated every day. I hiked with my dogs almost every day. I did yoga almost every day and really took care of myself. And then I got to an inspired feeling place and focused on the things that felt really, really good about my companies, because there were still good feeling things, but I had to take money out of the equation in order to focus on the things that still felt good.
Yeah.
Which is really hard when you have that kind of debt. It's really hard not to think about it 24 hours a day. And if you put that into perspective, because my companies still were making millions of dollars, but it was just break even. And so the debt always was like sort of cycling around that 1.2. Then I got it down to 700,000. Then it was there for a long time. And it was a process. But if you apply that to your own life and you have $14,000 worth of credit card debt and you are working a regular job, like I understand how stressful that can be and feel.
So I think this is really interesting because you mentioned money vibration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where you can be making a lot of money, but you're not at the vibrational match, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to do with how much money you're making. But I think, and this is, I'm also just speaking from my own experience and learning, being a student as well, is when you're manifesting, you haven't yet achieved the thing that you're manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost this process where you have to attach your mind to as if it's already happened. Not attach your mind, it's maybe not the right language, but really start to embody it. So
Yeah.
is that something that you started to do, like when you were hiking, like get into just a better feeling vibration?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So the whole premise is that whatever feeling place that you get into, then circumstances and events are going to surround you that match the feeling place that you're in. And it usually doesn't look exactly the way that you think that it will. So, you know, like I knew that I wanted to be rich. I knew I wanted to be really, really rich. And I had all these companies. And then out of the blue, one day through one of my companies, I ended up getting the exclusive sales rights on all video games. And I was not a gamer. Like that happened through a magical sequence of events, and it never would have occurred to me that that was the way that it was going to come. But you can manifest lots and lots of money and be terrified about money, and also manifest lots and lots of bills. So it really is a tricksy thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And
So,
I don't want people to get too into their mind about it, because basically it's this simple. If you feel really good about your life, you don't have to triple down on manifesting exactly what you want, because when you're thinking about exactly what you want, like I want this company to make $20 million this year, there's usually more of a vibration of feeling towards the lack of that happening than the presence of it being there. So just go get happy about anything. Just go get happy about anything, and happy things will come to you. You don't have to be thinking about money to manifest lots of money. You have to be happy in your life.
yeah, yeah, I love that, because I think that we can get so attached to the goal and like then judge ourselves. Are we there yet? You know, and then we're living in lack without even realizing it, because we think we're focused on the goal, but we're actually focused on, you know, what we don't have.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It's like that wanting mind, right?
Yes. And it's just super, super lack based, because you're like, well, I need X, but I have Y, and I have X, and I need this. If you need something, it's probably best just to like go play with your dog.
So
it's not going to be beneficial for you to think of it from that space.
So how important do you think strategy is? Because I know that mindset plays a very big piece. How important do you think strategy is?
I think strategy is super important. And I think that you should only create your strategy when you are in a really good feeling inspired space. So do everything that you have to do to get inspired, and then follow your instincts, because you know the next right step for your business. You know, you do. It's just a matter of executing on it, but you know, and especially when you sit with yourself, if you're a meditator, if you sit with yourself in that space and then you come out of it, you know what the next right thing for you to do in your company is.
Yeah. So you have a t-shirt company now.
Now I have a company that teaches people how to start t-shirt companies.
That's what I meant to say. You have a company that teaches people how to start t-shirt companies. And I know that there's a formula to that. So you've really mapped out the strategy. So what if somebody wants to start a business, do you think that there's a similar formula, or that just pertains to, starting a t-shirt company?
So we have an overarching company that I'm creating that does basically formulas for different very specific verticals that people go down, because there's a lot of very generalized information out there. There's a lot of people that teach like how to start a business, except for that they usually don't have an awful lot of knowledge about how to start a business. They usually just know about the marketing aspect, which is how they got somebody to have them coach them in business. And so we wanted to have a really tactile process where people who've made hundreds of millions of dollars in the space that people are going into have done. So we have celebrity entrepreneurs that teach the course. So my business partner, Dan Caldwell, started Tap Out Clothing, and he and I teach the course with another clothing entrepreneur, Dan DeMassa from Diapic. Because when you're learning something, you actually want to learn from somebody who has done exactly what you want to do. So if you want to start a restaurant, your mentor should be a restaurateur. If you want to start a gym, your mentor should have started a gym, you know? And so that's usually the advice that I give and recommendation. So this one applies to any product company. We target it specifically for t-shirts, but all product companies get run the same way.
And what do you think is like a main through line? Is there anything that you see that's like the main through line?
Yes. So there are really, really common success points and failure points, specifically in target companies. I mean, in product companies. And usually people fail because they misallocate their budget. And usually people fail in t-shirt companies also because they don't understand how to do, or any product company. They don't understand how to do a minimum viable product. Then they'll test things exclusively online. And when they test things exclusively online and they're not getting enough traffic, they don't really know what's going to work or not. So one of the best secrets for any product company is get a minimum amount of your product created and physically go somewhere. Go to a farmer's market, or if you're, selling MMA clothing, then you go to an MMA thing. I own Yoga Junkie. You go to a yoga festival and you see how people interact with your product, because anybody can tell you they like your stuff, but you see who pulls out their wallet and buys things and how much of it you sell. And then you can revise really easily from there to scale. And then you can get your online sales correct.
What do you love about business so much?
I love having an idea, a concept in my mind, and seeing it manifest into reality. Because I do mostly create physical products. And then now with the t-shirt company, because it is so hyper specific to products, like we had one of our people is on Shark Tank, and we've had other people like be able to quit their jobs and full time just be able to go sell t-shirts. And that's incredible to me to see people have total control over their time in life because of the company that they've built.
Yeah. So great. I mean, it just allows so much more that you can receive from living, so to speak,
Yes, it is. And so sometimes I forget how like super lucky I am just to be able to have 100% control over my time. And that is my favorite thing about being an entrepreneur.
How do you think about time? Because time is essentially also a thought to some degree. Time exists, but it is
time.
Okay.
I think I would think about time more if I had regulation around my time, but I don't.
Okay. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So it's not like this confined thing. It's more of like this expansive thing. Cause I think it's easy to get caught up in a lot of people have excuses like, I don't have time.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, you do. If you watch TV, you have time, period. I didn't own a TV for my whole entire adult life, and now Netflix got me. But I didn't
Oh,
have a TV for 20 years, and people would be like, I don't have time. And I'm like, I just saw you like watch 3 hours of television. You had 3 hours, or play video games, or any type of time waster that people are doing. Everybody has time.
yeah.
Now it is trickier. I don't have kids, so then that is trickier. Yes, I've watched my friends' kids for multiple days in a row, and I'm like, oh, this is why you don't have time. But even still, you actually do have time. If you make it a priority, you do have time. When I started my first clothing company after anti-establishment, I took a job. I totally BS'd my way into a very high-paying job as an escrow officer. And I did great at it because I had to, or they would have let me go. And I used that to find, because it was very expensive back then to start a clothing company. Plus, I didn't know what I was doing, so I spent a lot of money I didn't need to. So I would put my whole entire salary into my clothing company, and I would wake up at 6, take a shower, get to the office at whatever 7, get out of there at 6 at night, and work until 1 in the morning, and do it the next day. And then all weekend I would work. And I did that for 9 months until I could afford to just do the t-shirt company. And you just make the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think
You
if
have to.
if it's important enough and you care enough about it, you will find the time. I mean, it doesn't become an obstacle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've evolved so much. I mean, you started businesses when social media and the internet barely existed. Maybe it didn't even exist at all. And you've still been able to, to grow with the times, so to speak. And I think a lot of people struggle with that in terms of in businesses, right? Um, how do you think the internet and social media has changed the way people run businesses?
Oh my God, it's so much easier. It's so much easier. I started my first, let's see, so we'll talk about Sticker Junkie, which is another one of my companies. It was the first custom sticker website on the internet. We just celebrated our 20-year anniversary in January of 2019. We started in January of 1999. And back then, you used to buy ads in magazines to get people to go to your website. So the first year, I put all the money from my clothing line into starting Sticker Junkie. And I spent almost $1 million on magazine ads that first year, because we got the back cover of High Times and Rolling Stone and Alternative Press and Revolver and Stuff and Maxim, and all these magazines don't even exist anymore, most of them. But it was so much harder because you couldn't just like go get a Google search, because guess what? Google didn't exist. And so it's so much easier now. Like, you do have to find the right people to manage your social. And it can be daunting and overwhelming, but it's about 1,000 times easier than like paying $6,000 per ad, per magazine, per month to get the word out there, which is super ineffective, because when somebody obviously is holding a magazine, you have to retain that, remember that, see it 12 times, then go online and type it in, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is so much easier. And
So much
even just like building a website now, like you don't even really like need, there's so many free resources.
Yes.
Whereas before it was like you had to spend thousands of dollars,
The first time that I got catalogs for my clothing company, which you don't even need we still do catalogs, but you don't need a catalog anymore, really. We had our minimum order for catalogs was 10,000. Now you can go buy 100 catalogs online. Like, everything is easier, everything is cheaper. The barrier to entry is so much lower. Because of that, there's a lot more competition, so you have to learn how to stand out through the noise. But it is 1,000 times easier to be an entrepreneur now than it was, when I started out so many years ago.
Yeah.
What was that? I was 17, so it was like 28 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you're just rocking it. I want to switch gears a little bit, Andrea, and talk about your experience on Apprentice.
Oh, okay. That was a million years ago. Yes, I was a contestant on The Apprentice.
How did you get on the show, and what was it like?
They had been recruiting me since season 1, because I was in my like late 20s, and there were not a lot of female entrepreneurs. And they're like, you're an attractive female entrepreneur, you this way. But I just was literally too busy running my businesses even to apply. And one of my mentors was a psychologist who vetted everyone that's ever been on Survivor or Apprentice or Amazing Race. And so he called me up and said, they thought it was going to be the last season. Everyone involved with the show thought season 5 was the last one. And so he said, hey, this is going to be really good for you. not just for your businesses, but like for your evolution as a person, it would be good for you and you should go do it. And I did. And it was actually super challenging because I was really serious when I was younger. And so it was very challenging for me because I have chosen every person, every client, every vendor, every employee, everyone in my life since I was a teenager, except for the 9 months that I worked at an escrow company, which was very like specifically just to fund my clothing line. So to work with people that had personalities that were people that I would never voluntarily interact with was exceedingly difficult for me because it was, which I know sounds crazy to most people, but it was the first time I ever had to do that in my life.
And so that was challenging for
That
you.
was the hardest part, was the other people and their personalities. It was really difficult. But I mean, overall, staying in Trump Tower and, say about Donald Trump what you will. I personally did not vote for him, but he has the keys to the kingdom in New York. And so being able to go and be in all the high rises and on the airplane, and that part was really, really, really fun.
What's he like to be around? What did you feel when you were around him?
So this was years ago. He was a Democrat, by the way, when I was on the show. We talked about that because I worked for the Democratic National Committee in '92. He was like very funny and very charming, like shockingly funny and really charming, and we got along really well. He puts women into two categories: women that he's like sort of overtly sexual towards, and then women who he respects. Like, so Caroline, who is one of his judges, or Ivanka, would fall into the more respected category, and then I fell into that category. So the way that he interacted with me was lovely.
Interesting.
And we made each other laugh a lot. He was very funny.
Yeah. Yeah. What's something that you continuously tell yourself in terms of like a question that you constantly ask yourself?
Am I happy?
Am I happy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
because whenever stuff is not going right, the root cause is always that I'm not happy in my life.
yeah. And what do you usually discover about that? Is it usually that there's something that's not aligned?
Yes, it's usually, so I truly believe this, it's usually directional in our own thoughts. And so there is an amazing process. Esther Hicks is my favorite author of all times. I totally recommend your readers, if they have not read Ask and It Is Given, read Ask and It Is Given, or just type in Esther Hicks on YouTube and amazing videos come up. But she has this process called a focus wheel. Because if you have a troubling issue, you can find beneficial things about it or not beneficial things about it. So you write a big circle on a piece of paper, and in the middle, you write how you want to feel about something. Like, I want to feel joyful when I go into Sticker Junkie, one of my companies, for example. Especially if I'm having like issues with employees, which I don't now, but in like a decade ago I did. And then you would write all of the things that you already feel good about with that particular company, so that you start retraining your mind to think positively about the specific company that you're in.
Yeah, because I can imagine if you have all these different businesses, it's a lot.
It is. And so it can be easy to focus on like the parts that are out of place, but you can just as easily train yourself to focus on like, oh, but this is really good, and we have this new campaign coming up, and I really love the way that book came out, and those t-shirts look super great. Like, whatever it is that you're excited about, you can retrain your mind to focus on the more exciting aspects of your life exactly the way that it is.
Andrea, how many times have you read Ask and It's Given?
More than once. I listen to her audio because her audio is phenomenal, and she's amazing live. She goes all over the country and is live, and she's amazing.
What other books have been like really helpful for you?
I don't know. A 4-Hour Workweek was one of the most impactful books I've ever read. Atlas Shrugged is one of my favorite books of all time, and was one of the most impactful in business for me. There's an old book that is still really valuable because it has stuff that will never go out of style. It's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that's one of the most impactful business books on earth is because he read like hundreds of business books. Then he took his top like 70 and condensed, or even more, I think it was like a top 120 books, and condensed like basically the most valuable thing in that book into a 3-page snippet of it with written exercises for it. So it's really time coordinated.
Do you do visualization
Every day,
every day?
every single day. I actually do this thing that I call 7 times 3. I'm going to write it down so your viewers can see what I'm talking about. But you do 7 minutes, 7 seconds, and it just looks cute. And so then you want to do it. You do 7 7 x 3. You do 7 minutes, 7 seconds of meditation, 7 minutes, 7 seconds of appreciation, and 7 minutes, 7 seconds of visualization. And when you're appreciating, you appreciate really easy stuff that is easy to appreciate. Like this painting behind me, I love that painting. I'll just think about how much I love having that painting, or this pen, or hot water in my house that I don't got to do anything. I just turn a faucet. I didn't have to lay those pipes, just to get yourself into an appreciative mindset.
Is
And then
there,
visualization, don't try and take something that's broken. Don't try and take into your visualization something that isn't working and make it work. Just think about anything that feels good. Like I would think about being on Oprah and being in the yellow chairs and getting on Oprah and talking to her. And that show isn't even on the air anymore. It's not even a possible thing to have happen, but it's fun.
that's cool. I like that. Is there a reason why it's 773?
Because it looks cool. 7 minutes, 7 seconds, and then it's 3 things: visualization, meditation, appreciation.
I see. I was telling you when we first jumped on that when I do appreciation or gratitude, one of the things that comes to my mind often is the experience that I had at Sedona Magic, that you hosted your retreat there. So it's still a memory that I bring up often and have so much gratitude. It was such an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Are you still doing it, Andrea?
Yes, not this year, but I'm doing it again in 2020, and I hope you come.
Yes.
It's super fun.
Yes.
I don't do it every year anymore, but it's so fun. And I think for any of the listeners who are entrepreneurs, one of the most important things that I've done in my whole life, for business and for personal, is to create a network of entrepreneurs around me. Because then all of a sudden you have like a tribe of people who just totally understand where you're coming from. Most entrepreneurs have the same issues, especially when it's the same level of entrepreneur, because you deal with different things when you are just starting out versus as you get further along and have more employees and a C team and are recruiting. And just to have that like bond with other people that have a similar life experience, because it's really hard to explain to somebody who has a really different life experience what's going on. Especially, you have to have a very, 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 very high risk tolerance as an entrepreneur. Like, you have to be able to get back up, and that's a skill set that not everybody has.
Yeah. How do you think you develop that skill set besides having, do you think it's just the community that really makes that, just helps soften that?
I mean, I think I had a really high risk tolerance anyway my whole life, except for that it's way easier when you hear these stories of entrepreneurs who like clearly are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars if they sold all their companies, but that are having the same type of issues with being like all the way out to the edge, or having risk allocation, or hedging against things, or dealing with like the same interpersonal stuff that you're dealing with. It's really impactful.
Yeah. How do you think people can become better at taking risks?
I think that by just really, really getting it, that even if you live for 100 years, it's over like that. It's over like that. And so any amount of time or effort or life energy that you just completely waste worrying or feeling afraid of failure, or thinking about what other people think about you, or thinking about what other people are going to say with you, that is a complete waste of your right now moment. Period. It's just a total waste, and we all do it. I just completely admitted that I did that for like 3 years after I lost everything, but it was a complete and total zero benefit waste of 3 years of my life.
Are you grateful at all for that experience?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course I am. Of course
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Because it is what taught me how to be emotionally resilient.
Yeah. I think that too many people are afraid of what you actually experience, and they
Yes.
let that fear hold them back, and they live confined instead of falling down and getting back up. And I think there's such an important lesson that you can fall down, you can quote unquote fail, and you can feel bad about it, but you can get back up.
And the second that I started feeling better about it, boom, new business ideas, new businesses came along, more money flowed in. The second that I turned around and started thinking positively and stopped beating myself up, that's when it flipped. that's when it flipped. And I got ideas for companies that I owned for like a decade that I had never thought of before.
Amazing.
Yeah. And also, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it felt like the biggest deal in the world at the time, but it's not that big of a deal. And then I realized, like, wow, I actually really do know a very, very lot about business. And because I had so much success so young in my life, if that had never happened, I don't think I would be that nice of a person. I would be like, oh, why doesn't everybody just do this? If
Yeah.
every single thing had come super easily for me, I think I would be lacking a certain amount of empathy.
Yeah. And it's just part of the journey sometimes, right? Like it's impossible to avoid failure, and it's not about trying to skirt around it or scoot around it and, be a perfectionist in your life. I think the more that we, go for things and try, the bigger our life gets.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Mm-hmm.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
There are a couple of pieces. So the first one specifically for entrepreneurs is put a dollar figure on your time. So when I started out, this was $20 an hour was my dollar figure at the time, which is like a whopping figure for me. And then everything that I could hire somebody for less than $20 an hour to do, I would do. And so I hired this woman for like $8 an hour, which at the time was a lot of money. This is a very long time ago. And my rule was, while she was there, I would just be making sales calls. So she was there for 4 hours. I made $560 in sales while I paid her $32 for being there. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, I am not doing anything but sales calls ever again. And I hired her at the end of that day. I hired her on full time. So a lot of people like wait too long, but I was, it was very starting out my company. I was packing my own boxes, and that's just a complete waste of utilization of my time.
Yeah.
So the time you were asking about that earlier. And then the other thing is, do not tell your ideas in the beginning to anyone that you don't 100% know has your back. Because if they don't feel like they can do something like that, they'll try to protect you and dissuade you from your ideas, but I'm sure that you can make them work. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways that you can start a small company these days. There's Etsy, there's merch by Amazon, there's Teespring, there's a million different ways that you can start a company without spending hardly any money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Very true. So tell us how we can get in touch with you, Andrea.
So my t-shirt course is at teeacher.com. And then all of my other companies are off of AndreaLake.com.
And I'll put the links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Andrea. Amazing. Thank you.
Wait, what's your best piece of advice that you have?
So I got this piece of advice early on, which was start before you're ready.
Oh, I love that.
And it really, really helped me because I had all these ideas in my head and things that I wanted to do. And, it was coupled with, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going. And I think that, especially for women, we struggle with being perfect and feeling like we have to have it all together, all figured it out, or know the roadmap, or, maybe we have some rules about what we should have before we start. Mm-hmm. And it's like, just start. Mm-hmm. And then just, start again. And, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint, as you definitely know that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's just start before you're ready. Like if you have that little spark, follow it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually super similar to what I have a billionaire mentor guy. He used to say to me all the time, just make money first. Mm-hmm. When you have a new company coming up, he's like, don't worry about the trademarks. Don't worry about the legal fees. Don't worry about any of that. Just make money and just prove that you can make money with this concept and then do everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
So helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause I think I made that mistake actually in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I started to set up the company and all this stuff, and I wasn't making money because it was just like a hobby that I was just, tiptoeing with. Right. And then I saw my accountant who was like, dissolve the business, focus on making money, and mm-hmm. then we'll create the business around it.
So smart. Such good advice. Awesome.
But it is so helpful to have those people that are ahead of you.
Yes.
To lean in and provide you with some pointers, because otherwise you're just kind of like lost running around. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you. Have such a great day.
You too.